So the point is, therefore, that you can do everything you have to do in this spirit. Don't make a distinction between work and play. Regard everything that you're doing as play, and don't imagine for 1 minute that you've got to be serious about it. We live in a world where almost everyone believes quite sincerely that something is wrong with them, that they ought to be more this or less that, smarter, kinder, more disciplined, more enlightened, less anxious, less angry, less human. And so they go chasing endlessly after some future version of themselves, always just around the bend, where they finally get it all right. But I'd like to suggest something a little scandalous, that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you at all. What if I told you that your very being, this moment, this breath, this strange and sacred sense of I am, is already perfect? Not perfect in the moral sense. Not tidy, polished, or well-behaved, but perfect the way a flame dances, or a tree bends in the wind, or a galaxy spins. You see, you're not something apart from nature, observing it from a distance. You are nature, just as much as the stars, the ocean, and the clouds. The patterns of your thoughts, your laughter, your sorrow, they are every bit as natural as the ripples in water or the sound of thunder, and you don't need to do a thing to earn your place here. Because the truth is, you are all already an extraordinary phenomenon of the universe. You're just like that, and that is enough. One of the most extraordinary realizations, and it's not mystical or religious, but simply factual, is this. You didn't come into this world. You came out of it just as an apple tree apples the universe peoples, and you are one of those peoplings. So you're not a stranger wandering through a foreign land. You are this place, its eyes, its thoughts, its wonderings about itself. Now, most of us were brought up to feel separate, as though we're tiny egos, trapped inside these bags of skin, looking out at a world that's over there, full of objects and others. But that's a trick of perception, an illusion of language and labeling. In reality, there's no line where you stop and the world begins. You are continuous with it, like a wave is with the ocean. Look at a flame. Does it have a boundary, a fixed shape? It's a process, a happening, a flow. And so are you. You are not a static thing. You are a verb disguised as a noun. A whirl of consciousness, feelings, memories, all shimmering like light on water. When you were born, the universe didn't make a mistake. It wasn't trying to test you, fix you, or mold you into something better. It was expressing itself as you. And what a peculiar, delightful, and intricate expression you are. No one else has your exact rhythm, your exact voice, your particular pattern of laughter and silence. That isn't random. That's design in the deepest, most spontaneous sense, like the symmetry of a snowflake or the chaos of a thunderstorm. But here's where the confusion sets in. From a young age, we were taught to override that naturalness, to conform, to behave, to achieve, to become someone. And in doing so, we began to believe the greatest lie of all, that we are somehow not enough, that we must become rather than simply be. But tell me, have you ever seen a flower straining to bloom? Have you ever seen a tree hurrying to grow? They just do it. They unfold because they are that unfolding. You too are unfolding. You too are nature playing itself out. And so the invitation is this, to remember not to strive. to awaken to what has always been true, not just in books or doctrines, but in your bones and your breath. You are not a problem to be solved. You are not a project to be completed. You are an event of the cosmos, as marvelous as the stars, and just as inevitable. So look again, not with your eyes, but with your being, and perhaps, just perhaps, you'll start to recognize the miracle you've always been. Now, I know when someone says, "There's nothing wrong with you," the conditioned mind resists. You might think, "But what about my past, my failures, my guilt, my habits, my shame?" And yet, all of that too is part of the play, part of the process. Not wrong, just misunderstood. You see, from the very beginning we're handed a story. That being alive is a test. That you're here to prove something to God, to society, to your parents, to yourself. And so we become actors in a theater of self-improvement, constantly fixing, adjusting, striving as if life were a ladder to climb rather than a mystery to dance. But what if that whole project was built on a false premise? The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. So let's try this. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the sensation of being. The aliveness that is present before any opinion or judgment arises. That is you. Not the inner critic, not the timeline, not the to-do list, just the raw, open presence of being here. And what could possibly be wrong with that? Look at the clouds. They don't align themselves neatly into rows. They drift, they swirl, they form and dissolve. Is there anything wrong with them? No one scolds a wave for crashing too early, or a tree for growing crooked. They are not judged by some cosmic scoreboard. But we human beings somehow believe we are the exception, that we alone must justify our existence, that we must earn the right to be. And this is the root of our suffering, the original illusion. The truth is, your imperfections are not mistakes, they are textures, details, echoes of your particular music. You don't need to become worthy of life, you are life, expressing itself in human form. Just like fire flickers, just like water flows, even your attempt to become spiritual, even your desire to improve yourself, is already part of the perfection. It's like the ocean trying to become wet, or a sunbeam trying to shine. It's unnecessary. And yet even that is allowed. So instead of chasing some polished idea of who you ought to be, what if you simply noticed who you already are? Right now, without changing anything, without editing, without effort. There's nothing wrong with you. There never was. It's only the thought that says so, and you're not that thought. You are the silence behind it, the spaciousness that watches it come and go. And once you see this, not as a belief, but as a direct experience, something inside relaxes. And in that space, in that letting go, you begin to remember something ancient and true. You are nature wild, vast, unfinished, and beautiful. And you are just like that. You see, when I say you don't need to do anything, I don't mean you should sit still like a lump of stone. No. No. I mean something far subtler. I mean you don't need to strain to be what you already are. You don't push the river, you float with it. Because the river is doing the flowing not you. And in the same way, life is living itself through you. Birds don't sing to impress. They sing because it is their nature. You don't have to force meaning or chase purpose. It emerges like a breeze, like a laugh, like a melody, when you stop trying to manufacture it. Effortless action, as the Taoists say. Wu Wei, not laziness, not apathy, but the art of moving with the current rather than against it. And when you discover that rhythm, the one where you are no longer doing life, but being it, then the dance begins. Now here's a peculiar little paradox. Most of us spend our lives trying to be ourselves, but the moment you try, the moment you reach for authenticity, like a product on a shelf, you've already lost it. Because the self is not something you can grasp. It's something you relax into. Trying to be spontaneous is like trying to fall asleep on purpose. The very effort prevents the happening. We're so busy asking, am I doing it right? Am I healed yet? Am I authentic now? That we miss the very thing we're looking for. It's like chasing your own shadow around the room. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with the chase. It's adorable, in a way. The ego, trying to polish itself like a stone, endlessly sanding, refining, spiritualizing. But eventually, you begin to laugh, because you realize the one doing all the fixing is the very thing that doesn't need to exist. It's all a bit of cosmic theater. You don't need to become yourself. You already are. Right here, in your quirks, your flaws, your silence, your breath. Authenticity isn't something you try to achieve. It's what's left when you stop pretending. And that is freedom. Now, if we really want to go a little deeper, we have to look at something very peculiar. You didn't invent the image you have of yourself. It was handed to you, constructed, layer by layer, built out of glances, comments, expectations, like a mirror made of other people's thoughts. From the moment you were old enough to speak, you were told who you are. What's acceptable? What's not? What earns love? And what doesn't? And so, without even realizing it, you began to shape yourself according to the reflections around you. You became a collection of borrowed ideas, a patchwork personality stitched together from parents, teachers, religions. And then one day, maybe in your 20s, maybe much later, you start to feel tired, not physically, but existentially, as though you've been wearing someone else's clothes for so long, you forgot how your own skin feels. That's the moment, that little flicker of rebellion, that sense that the person you've been performing as isn't the one who's actually alive in there. The most dangerous thing you can do is believe your own role. Because the role is fine, it's useful, even. But it's not you. You are what's playing the role. You are the actor, not the mask. But society teaches you to mistake the costume for the being. You become the good girl, the strong man, the productive adult, and forget that you're also a storm, a poem, a mystery. And so, when people say, be yourself, what they often mean is, be the version of yourself we like the most. But that's not freedom, that's still a performance. The real task is to see through the performance. Not to destroy it, you don't need to rebel with clenched fists, but to recognize that it's just a costume. And when you see it as such, you can finally take it off, or wear it playfully, like a child in a mask, because the one underneath, that's the real you. The one who doesn't need to be impressive, who isn't worried about being liked, who doesn't have to be good, or enlightened, or enough. That one, the silent, observing, breathing aliveness behind all the stories was never broken and never needed fixing. It only needed remembering. So then, what's left if you are not the voice in your head, not the roles you've been assigned, not the identity you've spent years defending? What remains? Silence. Not the absence of sound, but the kind of silence that listens. The space in which all thoughts arise and fade. The stillness behind the movement. You see, awakening is not a matter of adding anything. It's not about gathering spiritual merit badges or perfecting your personality. It's a matter of subtraction, of unlearning. Like a muddy pond clearing when the stirring stops, you don't need to do anything for clarity. You simply allow the mud to settle. But most people are afraid of that silence, because in silence the ego cannot speak. And without noise, it begins to disappear. Yet that's where your real nature is hiding. Not in the effort, but in the ease. Not in the struggle, but in the surrender. The self, the true self, isn't discovered by thinking more, but by thinking less. By looking inward, not with judgment, but with wonder. And in that gentle noticing, you begin to feel it, a quiet hum behind your chest, a spaciousness where the need to become finally dissolves. And what's left is being pure, present, unconditioned, just like that. So then, how does one live like this, without all the grasping, the fixing, the polishing? Well, like the sky. The sky doesn't hold on to the clouds, doesn't chase the sun or argue with the storm. It just lets things pass through. And you, if you stop clinging so tightly to your story, can live like that too. No need to constantly edit yourself, no need to be better all the time. Because once you realize you are the sky and not the passing weather, everything becomes a little lighter. You begin to trust life more. Not because you figured it all out, but because you no longer believe you need to. There's a rhythm to things, a timing that doesn't belong to the clock, but to the heart. And when you stop pushing so hard, you can actually hear it. And that's the irony, isn't it? When you stop trying so hard to live the right way, you begin living the real way. More wonder, less control, more play, less proving. Because trees don't strive to be trees, and waves don't try to crash correctly. They just are. And so are you. So let yourself be lived. Let life happen through you without interference. Because you are just like that, and that is more than enough. And so we return to the beginning, to that strange and wonderful statement, there is nothing wrong with you at all, not as a comforting sentiment, but as a radical, liberating truth. You are not something broken that needs to be repaired. You are not some spiritual project waiting to be completed. You are in this very moment an unfolding mystery, a ripple in eternity, a brief song in the great silence. And if you can see yourself in the right way, not through the eyes of judgment or self-doubt, but as a phenomenon of nature like fire or clouds or galaxies, then you will see you were never separate. You were never too much. You were never not enough. You were just like that. Not perfect but whole. Not flawless but complete. And all that's left is to remember, to drop the pretense, to breathe in and simply be. Because once you stop chasing after some future version of yourself, you'll realize you've been home all along. Not in the world's idea of success, not in someone else's approval, but in your own quiet presence, in the simple sacred fact that you exist. And that is quite enough.
We live in a world that constantly tells us that we are separate, that we are distinct, isolated individuals, fighting against time, striving to accumulate, achieve, and survive. But what if I told you that this very notion of separateness, of isolation, is an illusion? What if the boundary between you and the world around you is not as solid as you've been taught to believe? Think of the tree outside your window. In all its grandeur, with its leaves reaching for the sky and its roots buried deep in the earth, it is not something separate from you. It is an expression of the same force that pulses within you. The air you breathe is the same air that the tree exhales. The water you drink is the same water that nourishes its roots. The earth, this vast interconnected system of life, is not divided into fragments, but is a continuous flow, a dance that never stops. Now, take a moment and consider this. You are not a separate observer of life. You are life, observing itself. The very idea that you are different from the world around you is a mental construct, an idea built over time by our thoughts, language, and conditioning. In reality, you and I, the trees and the rivers, the stars and the clouds, are all part of the same web of existence. There is no you without me, no me without you. But we are taught from an early age to compartmentalize, to think of ourselves as isolated beings in a world that is full of separate objects. We are trained to chase after success, fame, wealth, thinking that these things will bring us fulfillment. Yet in all our striving, we often miss the most fundamental truth. Happiness does not arise from the pursuit of these things, but from the realization of our oneness with all that is. The act of living is not about trying to get somewhere. It is about being here, fully, in the moment. You see, life is not a goal to be attained, it is a process, a flow of energy, of being and becoming. Every moment is complete in itself, and when you embrace the fullness of each moment without resistance, you become aware of the unity that is always present. The universe is not something out there for you to conquer. It is something you are already a part of. You are, in essence, the universe experiencing itself. So let go of the need to prove yourself, to fight against the current of life. In the end, there is no final destination, no fixed point to arrive at. Life itself is the journey, the exploration of the unknown, the constant unfolding of your own nature. The answer, if there is one, is not out there. It is within you, in the stillness, in the silence between your thoughts. So stop searching for something out there and start looking inward, where the truth of your being awaits. You are not alone. You never have been, and you never will be. The universe is not something you are separate from. Patience in isolation is not a mere waiting, a passive endurance of time. It is an unfolding of the soul, a deepening of connection with the rhythm of existence itself. Isolation, in its true sense, is not about being alone. It is about being with yourself, stripped of the need to perform, to achieve, or to seek approval. It is a space where the world fades away and you are left with nothing but the presence of your own being. In this space, there is no need to reach, to chase, to manipulate time. Time itself becomes irrelevant because you are no longer waiting for something. You are simply being. This is where the magic of patience begins. When we stop fighting the moment, when we stop wishing for something different, we begin to heal. It is in the silence of isolation that we reconnect with the divine, with the force that breathes life into everything. We are not separate from this force. We are of it. And it flows through us when we allow ourselves to rest in its current. The moment by moment, the truth of nature. Patience in isolation is not about passively waiting for something to change. It is the active surrender to the present moment. It is the trust that in time all things will be restored to their rightful place. Like a seed buried deep in the earth, it seems as though nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, growth is taking place. The roots are strengthening. The foundation is being laid for something far greater than what we can yet see. Restoration does not happen overnight. This is the paradox of patience. In our stillness, we move forward. In our isolation, we are never truly alone. There is a divine rhythm to life, a pulse that beats through the universe, and when we stop resisting, when we allow ourselves to rest within it, we become one with it. It is in these moments of quiet surrender that we receive the restoration we seek. Not from the world outside, but from the divine source within. So embrace isolation as a sacred space, not as a punishment, but as an opportunity for rebirth. Patience in isolation is the doorway through which the divine enters, restoring and renewing everything that we are. Act 1, Scene 2. Isolation, in its truest sense, is often misunderstood. When we think of being isolated, we typically associate it with loneliness, separation, or even punishment. The word itself carries a weight of discomfort, as if to be in isolation means to be cut off, abandoned, or neglected. However, there is another perspective, one that redefines isolation as a sacred space, a unique opportunity for personal transformation and deep connection with the self and the universe. Imagine for a moment that the world around you suddenly falls silent. The constant noise of everyday life fades away. We are so accustomed to the busyness of life, to the constant engagement with the world outside of ourselves, that the idea of being alone with our thoughts and feelings can seem intimidating. But this is where the true potential of isolation lies. In isolation, you are given the space to reconnect with yourself, unfiltered and unclouded by the opinions, demands, and expectations of others. It is a space where the noise of the outside world can no longer drown out your inner voice. Without the constant chatter of daily life, you are finally able to hear your thoughts, your desires, and your innermost truths. This is not isolation in the sense of being abandoned or alone in the conventional understanding. It is a space of introspection and clarity, a place where you can nurture a deeper understanding of who you truly are. The pressures of conforming to societal expectations fall away. When you embrace isolation as a sacred space, you begin to understand that it is not a void to be feared, but a fertile ground for growth. Just as a tree takes root in the quiet of the soil, isolation offers the perfect environment for the seed of your true self to take root and grow. This space allows you to listen to your intuition, to reflect on your journey, and to deepen your connection with the divine. In this stillness, you are able to cultivate patience, the kind of patience that doesn't merely pass time, but actively listens, processes, and allows for organic change to unfold. You might wonder, why is isolation so crucial for this kind of growth? It is in this sacred space that we stop seeking outside approval or validation. In the silence, we come face to face with our own fears, insecurities, and doubts, but also with our dreams, hopes, and aspirations. When there are no distractions, no external forces pulling us in different directions, we are given the chance to reconnect with the truth of who we are beneath all the layers that the world has placed upon us. The pressure to perform, to achieve, to meet expectations is lifted in isolation. There is no need to compare yourself to others or to conform to societal standards. You can shed the weight of these expectations and simply be. In this quietude, you return to your original, untainted essence. It is in this space that healing begins. The quiet forces of restoration and self-realization gently unfold within you, bringing you closer to a deeper understanding of your purpose and place in the universe. The beauty of divine timing is that it often brings us more than we ever dreamed possible. So, in moments of isolation, let us embrace the wisdom of divine timing. Let us trust that the universe is working tirelessly on our behalf, even when we cannot see it. Let us surrender our need for certainty and control, and instead align ourselves with the rhythm of life. For it is in this alignment that we find peace, purpose, and the profound truth that all things come in their season, not a moment too soon or too late, but precisely when we are ready to receive them. Patience in isolation reveals the unseen dimensions of the self. When we find ourselves separated from the noise of the world, stripped of the constant validation of external activity, we are left with the quiet hum of our inner being. This can be unsettling at first, as we are not accustomed to facing ourselves without distraction. Yet this is where the alchemy of transformation occurs. Within the silence, the stillness, and the solitude. The self, in its purest form, is not bound by the labels and roles we accumulate in the external world. It is not defined by the accolades, the failures, the possessions, or even the relationships we hold. In isolation, these identities begin to fall away, and what remains is the essence of who we are. At first, this process can feel like a loss, as though we are being stripped of all that gives us meaning. But this is not a loss. It is a return. In the rush of daily life, we rarely pause long enough to examine the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. We are so busy playing our roles, employee, parent, friend, partner, that we forget to ask, who am I when all of this is gone? Isolation provides the space to ask this question, and to sit with the discomfort of not knowing the answer. It invites us to turn inward, to explore the landscapes of our inner world, and to confront the parts of ourselves that we may have been avoiding. But this inward journey is not always easy. The mind, accustomed to external stimulation, may resist. It may dredge up fears, doubts, and insecurities in an attempt to fill the void. But these are not obstacles to be avoided. They are doorways to deeper understanding. Each fear, each doubt is an invitation to explore the parts of ourselves that long for healing. They are not enemies to be vanquished, but companions on the path to self-discovery. As we sit with these aspects of ourselves, we begin to see them for what they truly are, temporary, ever-changing, and ultimately illusory. The fears that once seemed so real begin to dissolve when faced with the light of awareness. The doubts that held us back lose their power when we stop resisting them and simply observe. This is the gift of patience in isolation. It teaches us to witness ourselves without judgment, to hold space for all that arises, and to embrace the fullness of our being. In this process of self-exploration, we may encounter our deepest desires and our greatest fears. We may uncover wounds that we did not know we carried, as well as strengths we had forgotten we possessed. Isolation acts as a mirror, reflecting back to us the parts of ourselves that we most need to see. It is the time of reckoning, but also of revelation. It is a reminder that we are not defined by our past, our mistakes, or our circumstances, but by the limitless potential that resides within. One of the most profound lessons of this inward journey is the realization that we are not separate from the universe, but an integral part of it. This connection to the greater whole brings a sense of peace and purpose that cannot be found in the external world. It is a knowing that we are exactly where we are meant to be, and that every moment, even the challenging ones, is part of a larger plan. This perspective transforms isolation from a state of loneliness into a sacred opportunity for growth and renewal. As we deepen our relationship with ourselves, we also begin to cultivate qualities that serve us long after the period of isolation has ended. This inner transformation does not happen overnight. It requires time, effort, and a willingness to be with what is. But the rewards are immeasurable. The beauty of this process is that it does not rely on external circumstances. When we embrace this journey, we come to see isolation not as a punishment or a setback, but as a gift. So as we navigate the challenges of isolation, let us remember its purpose. Let us approach it with curiosity, openness, and a willingness to grow. Let us trust that the universe is working in our favor, even when we cannot see it. For it is in the stillness that we find ourselves, and in finding ourselves, we are restored to the fullness of life. Isolation, when embraced with patience and an open heart, unveils a profound truth. Life is a continuous cycle of endings and beginnings, of loss and renewal, of destruction and creation. Just as the forest must sometimes endure the cleansing fire to make way for new growth, so too must we at times face the flames of transformation in our own lives. These moments of isolation are not voids, but spaces brimming with unseen potential, urging us to shed what no longer serves us and make room for something greater. At first glance, isolation may seem like a barren wasteland, a place devoid of activity, growth, or purpose. But look closer. and you will see that it is a fertile ground where the seeds of renewal are quietly germinating. These seeds are planted deep within us, buried beneath layers of fear, resistance, and doubt. They wait patiently for the stillness of solitude to coax them to life, to call them forth into the light of awareness. Consider how nature herself operates. So it is with us. In our moments of isolation, we are invited to let go of what we have outgrown, whether it be old habits, limiting beliefs, or relationships that no longer align with our true selves. This letting go can be painful, as it often involves confronting our attachments and facing the discomfort of the unknown. Yet it is only through releasing the old that we create space for the new to emerge. In these quiet, transformative moments, we may find ourselves drawn to reflect on the patterns and stories that have shaped our lives. What have we been clinging to out of fear or familiarity? What have we been avoiding because it challenges our sense of identity? Isolation brings these questions to the forefront, not as accusations, but as invitations to grow. It is a time to examine the structures we have built around us and within us, and to discern which of them are strong enough to support our future and which must be dismantled. This process is not linear. It does not follow a straight path or adhere to a predictable timeline. Like the cycles of nature, it unfolds in its own rhythm, often beyond our conscious understanding. There will be moments of clarity and moments of confusion, times when we feel on the brink of breakthrough and times when we feel utterly lost. Yet even in the midst of uncertainty, there is a deeper knowing that whispers to us, trust the process. Trust that something greater is at work, even if you cannot see it yet. Isolation also teaches us the art of surrender, not as an act of giving up, but as an act of letting go. It is the willingness to release our grip on control, to stop resisting the flow of life, and to allow ourselves to be carried by the current. This surrender is not passive. It is an active engagement with the present moment, a deep listening to what life is asking of us. It is a practice of faith, of believing that the universe knows what it is doing, even when we do not. Through this surrender, we come to understand that renewal is not something we must force or strive for. It is a natural process that unfolds when we create the conditions for it to happen. Just as the soil must be tilled and nourished before the seeds can grow, so too must we tend to the inner landscape of our being. This tending may involve rest, reflection, and self-care, or it may involve confronting the shadows we have long ignored. Whatever form it takes, it is a sacred act of preparation, a way of aligning ourselves with the cycles of life. As renewal begins to take root, we may notice subtle shifts within us. There is a lightness, a sense of possibility, a quiet confidence that we are on the cusp of something new. Yet this renewal is not just for ourselves. As we emerge from isolation, we carry with us the wisdom, resilience, and compassion we have cultivated. We are better equipped to navigate the challenges of life, to support others in their own journeys, and to contribute to the collective healing of the world. In this way, isolation becomes not a solitary experience, but a deeply interconnected one. It reminds us that we are part of a greater whole, that our personal growth is intertwined with the growth of others, and with the evolution of life itself. This perspective shifts our understanding of isolation from a state of separation to a state of unity, from a time of emptiness to a time of abundance. To refer to another word, the very word of truth. When we embrace this process with patience and trust, we discover that isolation is not a period of stagnation, but a period of profound transformation. It is a time to honor the cycles of life, to let go of the old, and to welcome the new. It is a reminder that even in the quietest moments, the universe is working in our favor, guiding us toward our highest potential. So, as we journey through the seasons of isolation, let us do so with an open heart and a curious mind. Let us trust in the wisdom of life, knowing that renewal is always on the horizon. And let us remember that the seeds we plant in these moments of solitude will one day bloom into something beautiful, not only for ourselves, but for the world around us. For in the stillness of isolation lies the promise of divine restoration, a promise that life, in its infinite wisdom, always fulfills. What would it feel like if for just a moment you dropped the idea that time is something happening to you, that it's not a ticking enemy you're constantly racing against? What if this moment, yes, this very one, is not a fleeting interruption on your way to something more important, but the whole show, the full dance of the universe expressing itself exactly as it must? And here you are sitting in it, breathing in it, playing your role not as a victim of time, but as its author. You see, we often treat life as though we're on our way somewhere else, deferring joy, deferring being. But time isn't a corridor. It's a canvas. And you're not a pawn being pushed along some divine conveyor belt. You are the rhythm, the beat, the breath of now. So act as if this time is yours, because in truth it never belonged to anyone else. Not your past, not your future, only now exists, and you are already it. You are never given time to use up like a commodity. You are time unfolding. You are the pulse of presence, the echo of eternity wrapped in the illusion of a clock. When you act as if this time is yours, you begin to notice something strange and beautiful. The tension begins to dissolve. The chasing slows. There is a kind of sacred mischief in realizing that there's nothing more to get to, nowhere else to be, because wherever you are, that's precisely where life is blooming. To act as if this time is yours is not arrogance, it is humility. It is stepping out of the role of someone seeking approval from some abstract authority and stepping into the role of the universe playing human, dancing its brief, unrepeatable dance. It's not about claiming control, but about embodying flow, about ceasing to grip so tightly and beginning at last to glide. And so the invitation is not to wait. It's not to prepare yourself endlessly for some grand moment to come. It is to act as if this is it, because it is. This isn't a rehearsal, and it isn't a mistake. It is the only thing that ever truly exists. This moment, this breath, this you. Time has always been presented to us as something that exists outside of ourselves, a ticking clock, a flowing river, a countdown toward death or achievement. We grow up believing that we move through time like travelers in a car driving down a road. Past is behind us, future ahead, and the present a fleeting, fragile instant slipping through our fingers. But this notion, while useful for organizing the world, is not the truth of our being. It is a mental construct. In reality, time is not something you pass through. Time is what you are. You are not in time. Time is in you. You see, the illusion begins when we identify as separate from the flow of life. We say things like, I don't have enough time, or time is running out. And in doing so, we turn time into a tyrant, an oppressor that dictates our worth, our productivity, our freedom. But ask yourself, who set the clock? Who decided what counts as a waste of time or a good use of it? The answer lies not in some universal authority, but in the collective agreement of minds that have forgotten their true nature. Because in the deepest sense, time isn't a force acting upon you. It is an aspect of your own consciousness playing out. There is no objective second ticking away behind the scenes of the universe. What you call a moment is not a fixed unit. It is the meeting point between awareness and existence. The ticking of the clock is only meaningful because you are there to experience it. Without your awareness, without your attention, time doesn't register. So who is the master here? If time depends on your observation to exist meaningfully, then the entire structure of past, present, and future bends to your perception. When you look at a tree blowing in the wind, or hear laughter echoing in a room, you are not witnessing a timeline, you are experiencing you. The tree, the wind, the sound, they all happen in your field of awareness, which is timeless. You've never stepped out of the now, not even once. The idea of a minute ago or tomorrow is only a thought occurring in the present. It has no substance outside of your imagination. The story of time is born in thought, and you are the thinker, the dreamer, the one weaving the tale of before and after. The tragedy of our misunderstanding is that we act as though we are victims of time, caught in its flow like leaves on a river. We panic when we think we're running out of it, feel guilt when we waste it, and spend most of our lives racing against it. But have you ever stopped to notice that time never actually runs out? Every single moment of your life has always occurred in the present. Even when you are remembering now. You know, when you're anticipating now. The entire illusion of time passing is built on the foundation of a still point that never moves. Your awareness. So what happens when you stop treating time like an external object and start recognizing it as an extension of your being? You begin to live differently. You stop hurrying. You stop fighting. You begin to settle into life, not as a linear race, but as a living pulse. You begin to see that you are not merely in time, you are the source through which the experience of time arises. And once you begin to see this, something extraordinary happens. The anxiety that's been tied to time starts to dissolve. When you say, I don't have enough time, it's often not time that's lacking, it's presence. You are scattered, distracted, reaching for a future or clinging to a past, and so the richness of now escapes you. But when you embody the understanding that time is something you generate through attention, then presence becomes your superpower. You stop trying to manage time and begin to be time. That's what it means to act as if this time is yours, not that you control some external clock, but that you are the very measure by which moments are made meaningful. This doesn't mean you abandon calendars or clocks or responsibilities. Those are tools, and tools are fine when they serve you. But when you serve them, when you let them dictate your experience, you become a servant to a fiction. And the moment you return to yourself, to that simple, silent awareness within, you reclaim your place as the author of time. You reclaim your being. What if you were not running out of time, but rather waking up within it? What if the real truth is that time isn't carrying you toward death, but flowing through you as life? To recognize this is not merely to think differently, it is to feel differently, to inhabit the world in a new way. You walk slower. You breathe deeper. You no longer act as though something more important is coming later. You realize that nothing can ever be more important than this. This taste, this breath, this heartbeat, this moment. And so the invitation is not to try to beat the clock or stretch the hours or manage the minutes. The invitation is to see through the clock altogether, to recognize that the hands spinning on the dial are not the keepers of your life. You are. The real measure of your time is not what the watch says, but how awake you are, how deeply you are experiencing the miracle of being, how fully you are embracing the truth that this is not just another passing second. It is you. It has always been you. You are time, dreaming of itself. The present moment is all there is. That isn't a metaphor, and it isn't a poetic way of speaking. It's a simple observation that reveals itself the moment you stop chasing after mental illusions. The past as we think of it no longer exists. The future has not yet arrived. And yet we live as though the present is some narrow bridge between the two, some unstable, fleeting sliver of time we must cross quickly to reach something more solid. But what if it's the other way around? What if the present isn't a bridge, but the entire landscape, and the past and future are just thoughts, echoes and projections within it? You've never actually experienced anything outside of now. Every memory you've ever had was recalled in the present. Every plan you've ever made was imagined in the present. Even when you drift off in thought, even when you dream or reflect or fantasize, those experiences occur within the container of this single ongoing moment. So this isn't just philosophy, it's direct experience. It's what's always been true whether you are paying attention to it or not. The present is not what comes between things, it is the thing. And yet, we rarely live in it. We are constantly turning away, mentally leaning forward into the future, rehearsing conversations, anticipating problems, or pulling backward into the past, replaying what went wrong, who said what, or how we might have done it differently. In doing so, we miss what is actually happening. We miss life. We walk through it in a kind of trance, always trying to get somewhere else. And so we mistake this moment as a means to an end, an obstacle, a preparation, a task to endure, rather than an experience to inhabit. But the present does not require your effort to be important. It simply is. It does not wait for you to assign meaning to it. It unfolds, breathes, and exists, with or without your permission. And the irony is, while we search endlessly for peace, meaning, clarity, these things can only be found now. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. Because now is the only place they've ever lived. This moment is not a mistake or an accident. It's not an interruption, it's not a detour on the way to something better. It is the full expression of life in its raw, unrepeatable form. Even if it's messy, even if it's painful, even if it doesn't look the way you thought it would. The idea that things are supposed to be different is always an idea constructed in your mind based on past experiences or imagined future. That the present is indifferent to those stories. It is what it is, and in that there is strange freedom. To be fully present is not to escape reality. It's to finally meet it. It is to stop resisting, stop interpreting, stop mentally labeling, and just feel, just see, just be. It doesn't mean you turn off your mind or forget your responsibilities. It means you stop letting thoughts pull you out of your own life. You come home to the only place that's ever real, here. And in doing so, you begin to see the richness you've overlooked. You hear the sound of the wind in the trees. You feel the subtle texture of your breath. You notice the way your body rests against the chair. These are not small things. They are life itself. When you stop trying to escape the present moment, it opens up like a flower. You realize it contains everything: joy, sorrow, stillness, motion, silence, laughter, confusion, clarity. And you're allowed to experience it all. There's no need to edit or control it. You don't have to make this moment prettier, smarter, or more exciting. You just have to show up. You just have to stop pretending you're somewhere else. The tragedy is not that we grow old or that time moves quickly. The tragedy is that we spend most of our lives absent from our own experience. We are so busy chasing the next thing, fixing the last thing, managing time like it's a resource to be controlled, that we forget time is only ever experienced now. And in forgetting that, we forget ourselves. We become strangers to the only reality we ever truly had. And yet at any moment we can return. There is no spiritual path more direct than simply paying attention. Look around. Right now, in this very instant, everything is whole. Nothing is missing, nothing is broken. Your breath rises and falls. The air moves gently through space. Light shifts across the room. This is not filler. This is it. The whole universe somehow is expressing itself through this very scene. Through your eyes, through your skin, through your awareness. You are not watching life from the outside. You are what life is doing in this form, in this place, in this time. And the only thing keeping you from realizing that fully is the belief that something else is more important than now. Some future version of yourself, some outcome, some achievement. But that belief is only a thought. It has no power except the one you give it. The present is not the means to something greater. It is the source, and you are not late to it. You are not unworthy of it. You are already here. You always were. Even your restlessness, even your doubt, even your longing to be somewhere else is something happening now. So why fight it? Why push it away? What if you could simply observe it, allow it, feel it, without turning it into a problem? That is the beginning of presence. Not perfection, not endless bliss, but honesty, aliveness, openness to what is. The mind will always try to pull you forward or backward. That's its habit, its training. But you don't have to follow it. You can notice the thoughts without becoming them. You can let them pass like clouds across the sky. The sky does not try to catch the clouds. It does not struggle to hold on to the sun or push away the rain. It simply holds everything. And in the same way, your awareness can hold this moment exactly as it is, without judgment, without resistance, without needing it to change. And so you begin to live differently. Not slower or faster, not richer or poorer, but deeper. You begin to see that what you were chasing was never in the future. It was always here, waiting for you to notice, waiting for you to stop running, waiting for you to return to yourself, not as an idea or a role or a name, but as presence, as being, as now. To act as if this time is yours, you must step into the dance of life as though you already belong, without needing to earn your place. And the only thing that ever stood between you and that belonging is the illusion that you don't. You were not born into this world as a stranger to it. You are not some isolated fragment cast into a vast and indifferent universe. You are the universe noticing itself in human form, and your life is not separate from existence. It is existence expressing itself in a unique, unrepeatable pattern. So the invitation is simple, to participate, not as someone trying to get it right, but as someone who remembers that being here at all is already enough. The fear of inadequacy, the suspicion that we are not ready, the hesitation to act, to speak, to create, to move, these are stories we tell ourselves based on comparisons, on imagined standards, on voices absorbed from the outside world. But what if you were never meant to live by someone else's script? What if waiting for permission is the only thing that ever truly holds you back? The trees do not ask whether they should grow. The ocean does not seek approval to crash against the shore. Life unfolds according to its own nature, and so do you. To act as if this time is yours means to trust that you are part of that unfolding, not by controlling it, but by entering it fully. So often we act from a place of apology, as though we are intruding into life rather than belonging to it. We shrink ourselves to avoid being seen, delay our dreams until we feel more qualified, and hesitate to speak because we worry we won't be heard the right way. But all of that assumes the present is a test we must pass. It assumes that some future version of ourselves will be more legitimate, more worthy, more real. But that's just a trick of the mind. That future never comes. The only time that's ever been yours is now, and the only version of you that can live it is the one sitting here, breathing, sensing, feeling in this moment. When a bird sings, it doesn't rehearse. It doesn't ask itself whether its voice is good enough or whether now is the appropriate moment. It sings because singing is what it does. In the same way you have a song inside you, perhaps not in notes or melody, but in presence, in the way you move through the world, in the way you show up for what is. The act of living is itself a form of art, and you are already painting with every step you take, whether you know it or not. To live as if this time is yours does not mean you must shout or dominate or claim space aggressively. It means you recognize that your being here is already a kind of participation in the whole. It means you stop asking whether you're doing life right and instead begin to engage with it directly. You speak because you have something to say, not because you're sure it will be perfect. You move forward not because the path is guaranteed, but because walking is your nature. You act not because you've mastered the outcome, but because life is asking you to be part of it. The way I'm inclinated, everything around you is happening now. Trees are blooming, stars are forming, hearts are beating, winds are shifting. You are not watching from the outside. You are inside the event. You are the event. So the question is never, am I ready? The question is, can I remember that I've always been part of this? Because when you remember, something quiet and powerful happens. You begin to take your time seriously, not in the sense of rushing to be productive, but in honoring the strange and fleeting miracle of being here at all. The truth is, you will never feel completely ready. You will never feel like everything is aligned perfectly, that all your doubts are gone, that the timing is pristine. Because life does not wait for those conditions. Life moves, it pulses and shifts and flows, and if you try to wait for the perfect moment, you will miss the one you're in. The courage to live as if this time is yours comes not from certainty, but from intimacy with the unknown. It comes from realizing that all you ever have is the dance itself, not the choreography. You do not need to justify your existence. You do not need to prove your worth by achieving some imaginary goalpost. Your breath is already a testament to your place in this world. Your presence is already an offering. And when you begin to live from that understanding, your actions begin to change. Not because you try to become someone else, but because you stop trying to be someone you're not. You begin to move with the current instead of against it. You begin to trust that your instinct to create, to love, to rest, to speak, to begin is not a mistake, but a signal. Acting as if this time is yours means giving yourself permission to show up fully, not just when you're polished, but especially when you are uncertain. It means taking the risk of being seen, of being heard, of being present, not because you know how it ends, but because you know that being part of it is what matters. It means treating this day, this moment, not as a waiting room, but as a sacred unfolding event, not because it looks the way you imagined, but because it is happening now, and now is all you ever truly have. This moment does not require credentials. It does not ask you for references. It only asks that you be here, that you show up, that you remember that the very fact of your aliveness is enough reason to participate. There is no gate to unlock, no finish line to cross before you can begin living as if this time is already yours. There is only the letting go of the story that says otherwise. And when that story begins to fall away, when you stop postponing your aliveness, you begin to notice the subtle invitation that has always been there. The invitation to speak from your center, to act with clarity, not because the world agrees with you, but because your inner being resonates with truth. To take up your space gently, without force, without defense, to walk into the unknown not as a stranger but as someone returning home. No one else can live your life. No one else can make your choices, feel your feelings, take your breaths. This life is your thread in the tapestry. And you don't have to weave the whole thing, you just have to let your part be true. That's what it means to live as if this time is yours. Not to control the pattern, but to know you belong in it. And so you take the step. You speak the word, you write the sentence, you offer the kindness. You breathe. Not because you're certain, not because it's guaranteed, but because you're here. And being here is the only real authority you ever needed. You have been conditioned to think of time as something you chase, as if it were always running just ahead of you, demanding you hurry or else be left behind. You are taught to plan, to prepare, to organize your life in neat boxes labeled past, present, and future, as if the present were merely a bridge between what was and what might be. But this idea is a trick. Time isn't a line you travel across. It is not something outside of you. It is not something to be managed, captured, or controlled. The truth is, time is a dimension of your being, woven into the very fabric of your presence. And when you begin to act as if this time is yours, you awaken to the illusion that you are ever separate from it. This time is not something given to you in fragments. It is not a scarce resource being rationed out by the ticking of a clock. It is not something you must use efficiently to justify your existence. You are not here to earn your place through productivity. You are here to live. And living does not happen in abstract schedules or imagined futures. It happens here, now. in the space where breath moves in and out, and the warmth of sunlight on your skin, in the glance shared between two people, in the silence between your thoughts. This fleeting, pulsating, ungraspable now is where your life is taking place. And you are not an outsider observing it. You are it. But your mind, clever as it is, creates distance. It whispers that you are behind, that you are late, that you should have done more by now. It speaks in terms of lack, of what's missing, of where you ought to be. It tells you that the present is not enough, that the real thing is always elsewhere. And you believe it. You rush, you strive, you try to fit into a schedule that was never meant to hold your soul. You think, once I get there, once I finish this, once they see me, once I prove myself, then I can relax, then I can live. But that moment doesn't come, because it never existed. The only time that has ever been real is now. The only place life can ever touch you is now. So when you act as if this time is yours, you are not becoming arrogant or indifferent. You are waking up. You are realizing that this moment does not require justification, that your breath doesn't need permission, that your being is not dependent on achievement. You begin to see that presence is not something you earn through hard work or moral superiority. It is your natural state, your original knowing. To reclaim your time is to reclaim your power. Not the kind of power that controls others, but the quiet strength of alignment with reality. When you are truly here, when you stop running from moment to moment, you begin to notice what has been waiting for you all along. The texture of the air, the sound of your own heartbeat, the way the light shifts across the room, the small gestures of kindness that pass between strangers. Life becomes vivid, not because it changed, but because you finally stopped trying to outrun it. And with this clarity comes a profound shift. You begin to act from presence, not from panic. You speak because it is time to speak, not because silence feels unsafe. You move when movement arises naturally, not because stillness feels like failure. You learn to trust the rhythm of your own aliveness. You begin to honor the seasons of your energy, the natural rise and fall of your inner world. You realize that rest is not laziness, but a sacred part of the cycle. You stop measuring time in terms of output and begin to feel it as a current moving through you. When you truly inhabit your time, you no longer need to rush into the next thing. You can listen more deeply, love more fully, and create without desperation. Your work becomes an offering, not a transaction. Your relationships become sanctuaries, not strategies. You stop trying to control the river and learn to float in it. And in this floating, you find an unexpected kind of freedom. Not the freedom of escape, but the freedom of arrival. To act as if this time is yours is not to declare ownership in the usual sense. It is to dissolve the illusion that time can ever be possessed or lost. You begin to see that what you called your life is not some distant goal to be reached, but a continual unfolding, a process, a mystery. You are not meant to conquer it, you are meant to experience it. And so you slow down. Not out of laziness, but out of reverence. You become intimate with the ordinary. You drink your tea and actually taste it. You look at a leaf and see its veins. You listen to someone speak without planning your reply. You laugh not to impress, but because something real moved through you. You cry, not because something broke, but because something finally opened. time stops being a measurement and becomes a melody. And in this melody, you find yourself becoming whole again, not perfect, not fixed, but whole, as in undivided. You no longer see your past as a chain around your ankle, or your future as a prize just out of reach. You begin to realize that everything that ever happened is part of this moment. Everything you feared, loved, longed for, it is all here, in the breath you are taking now. So there is no need to wait. No need to delay your living until you've met some arbitrary standard. No need to perform for the invisible judges in your mind. This time is yours, not because you earned it, but because you are here. This second is not asking for perfection, it is simply asking for presence. And presence is something you already know how to give. You were born with it. Perhaps everything is lost in the flow. And protect it, and preserve it, and fight it, much less abandon it, the canvasser. Wherever, however, or how, not to be near this place, and you know you are not going to die. You don't die. When you meet this moment, something quiet and miraculous begins to unfold. You begin to remember that you are not late, not behind, not wrong. You are precisely where you are meant to be, because there is nowhere else you could be. You belong to this now, not in some abstract spiritual sense, but in the most direct, embodied way possible. You are this now. So breathe. Move slowly. Look around. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Let this moment take shape inside you. You do not need to rush toward it. The very idea of control is one of the great illusions of our experience. We imagine ourselves to be separate from life, as if we are standing on the shore trying to command the tides. We think if we plan well enough, strive hard enough, predict every variable, we can mold time and life to our will. But look closer. Watch your breath. It comes and goes without your command. Listen to your heartbeat. It beats not because you tell it to, but because life itself is moving through you. You do not control the unfolding of a flower, the changing of the seasons, or the path of the wind. So why cling to the illusion that you can control the deeper rhythm of your own becoming? You see, control is rooted in fear. It is the ego's desperate attempt to protect itself from the unknown. To control time is to believe that you are separate from it, that you are somehow standing outside the river, deciding where it flows. But you are the river. You are the current and the flow and the ever-shifting pattern of water meeting stone. And when you try to force the river to behave according to your mental maps, you suffer, not because life is cruel, but because life cannot be confined. It refuses to shrink to the size of your expectations. The truth is that time, real time, living time, is not linear, and it does not yield to pressure. It is not a thing to be managed. It is a rhythm to be felt, a presence to be surrendered to. And when you act as if this time is yours, you are not seizing it like a possession. You are merging with it. You are stepping into alignment with the vast intelligence that breathes the cosmos into motion. And in that alignment, the need for control dissolves like morning mist. To let go of control is not to become passive. It is not to collapse into chaos. It is to become responsive. It is to learn the art of listening. Life is always speaking, but when you are busy imposing your agenda upon it, you cannot hear. When you are clinging to the idea of what should happen next, you miss what is actually happening. You miss the invitation that is always present, to participate in this moment, not as a dictator, but as a dancer. Imagine the difference between a dancer who tries to force every move, to calculate every step, and a dancer who lets the music move through them. The former is rigid, anxious, often out of sync. The latter becomes the music itself, flowing effortlessly, timelessly. That is how life moves when you release the illusion of control. It becomes a kind of improvisation, an unfolding, where you are no longer fighting the beat. You are the beat. But this requires trust. And trust is terrifying to the part of you that has been taught to fear uncertainty. To let go means to fall into something without guarantees, to allow space for mystery. And yet everything truly beautiful arises from that space. You did not plan the moment you first fell in love, or the way a sunset took your breath away, or the exact instant a deep truth broke through your resistance. These moments arrived not because you controlled them, but because you allowed them. You were open, soft, surrendered. When you act as if this time is yours, you are not trying to dominate it, you are meeting it as an equal. You are entering into relationship with the now, not as a tyrant demanding results, but as a lover seeking presence. And lovers do not try to control each other. They listen, they feel, they move together in rhythm. That is what this moment is inviting you to do. To listen, to feel, to move with it rather than against it. Of course, your mind will resist. It has been trained to believe that letting go is dangerous, that if you loosen your grip, everything will fall apart. But what if that falling apart is the beginning of something real? What if what collapses is only the illusion of control, and what remains is truth? The kind of truth that cannot be spoken, only lived. The kind of truth that makes your soul feel spacious again. You do not need to orchestrate every detail of your journey. The path is not a problem to be solved, it is a mystery to be lived. And the more you try to force it into a predefined shape, the more you disconnect from the intelligence that knows exactly how to carry you. Consider the tree. It does not force its branches to grow in straight lines. It twists and bends and reaches in all directions, not because it has a plan, but because it is responding to sunlight, to wind, it is adapting, growing, dancing with life. So can you. And as you begin to live in this way, something strange happens. The very things you were chasing begin to come to you, not because you wrestled them into submission, but because your openness allowed them to find you. You start to notice synchronicities, moments of alignment that could not have been planned. You begin to experience the unfolding of life, not as random, but as deeply intelligent. You no longer feel the need to know what's next, because what's now is enough. This is the essence of surrender. Not giving up, but giving in. Not collapsing, but opening. It is the moment you stop trying to steer the river and allow yourself to be carried. And you find, to your surprise, that the river knows exactly where it's going. It always has. The current was never your enemy. It was your teacher, your guide, your home. When you relinquish the illusion of control, what remains is intimacy. You become more intimate with yourself, with others, with the world. You are no longer held at a distance by your plans and projections. You are here, touching life, breathing it, feeling it move through you. And in that intimacy there is great peace. Not the peace of everything being perfect, but the peace of no longer resisting what is. So much of your suffering comes not from the events of your life, but from your resistance to them, from your insistence that they be other than they are. And what a relief it is to let that resistance go, to stop arguing with reality, to see that everything is already happening exactly as it needs to, not according to your plan, but according to a wisdom far deeper. And so, when you act as if this time is yours, you stop needing to dominate the moment. You begin to trust the unfolding. You begin to feel that you are part of something vast and benevolent, something that does not need your control, only your presence. And in that presence you come home, not to a destination, but to a way of being, a way that says, I don't need to force this. I am already in it. I am already held. I am already enough. Let the moment lead. Let time be your partner, not your possession. And in doing so, you will discover a freedom no schedule can offer, and a fulfillment no future can promise. You will discover the joy of simply being here, now, utterly and completely.